Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be reviewing a show I'm pretty confident not many of you would have heard of or even watched, and that is Red Dwarf, specifically in this video season 1. Now, before we get deep into the review and recap of the season, let's have a quick look at how we're going to go about this review. We'll have our little section at the start, where we'll have a look at what each episode was about, and then a quick little summation on the whole series. Then we'll move into the real guts of the review, where it's a little bit of an open discussion around did I actually like it, what was bad, good, etc., and would I even recommend it? And then finally, the fun little climactic ending of a rating and any final thoughts that, come to me. And if any of those sections don't sound like a bit of you, feel free to skip to the timestamps I've put on the video, or hopefully the markers that editor me has put on the video now, and you can just skip all the riffraff that you don't want to see. But without further ado, let's get into that review. Now, part 1, we're going to be having a look at each of the episodes and just a little bit of what they're about, and for the plot of each episode, I have made a little YouTube short that sums it up in a minute. However, for those don't feel like watching those, I'll also give it a little concise go here. But if you are interested in any of those, feel free to check out for a little bit more depth of each episode. And it should be pointed out that like most sitcoms, Red Dwarf's episodes are canonical. Or in other words, if something big happens in one episode, then the next episode will reflect that. However, like most sitcoms, each episode does have its own subplot that's rarely reflected in the next one. But with that said, let's have a look at the first episode. Episode 1 of any first series really sets the scene and starts to explain the story, and this episode is no different. We learn we're watching the going abouts of a mining ship called Red Dwarf that's floating off in space and on its way back to Earth. We also get a look at our two main characters, Arnold Rimmer and Dave Lister, who are two low-level engineers that don't get on particularly well, and unfortunately for them, share the same room. When Dave is found to have brought a cat on board without authorization, he's given the punishment of stasis for a couple of months until the ship returns to Earth, which basically means he's frozen in a time pod until they reach home. However, when he gets out of the pod, he's told that it's in fact been 3 million years and the ship's crew were all wiped out due to a radiation leak, with the only survivors being a life form that mutated from his pet cat and the hologram of his bunkmate Arnold Rimmer brought back to keep him sane. Then episode 2 rolls around, the ship is starting to prepare for light-speed travel so Dave can return to Earth quickly. However, the high-speed travel starts to present a few unique problems, the appearance of future echoes. These future episodes are the niche of the episode and are basically short little anomalies that allow the crew to briefly see into the future. Arnold sees an echo of Dave's death, which takes up most of the episode's plot, and in the end, it wasn't Dave that he saw die, but instead one of Dave's sons. How does he have a child on the ship? We don't know, and hopefully we'll find out. Episode 3 is a little bland. Dave is rightly coming to terms with the fact the entire crew is dead and pleads with Rimmer to let him see the hologram of his old crush Kachansky, which would mean switching Rimmer off for a while. Rimmer disagrees as he doesn't trust Dave to turn him back on, and this leads to Dave trying to outrank Rimmer by passing a cooking exam, which it looks like he passes, but in the next episode we find out he didn't. Bit of a weird episode, not one of my favourites. And then the 4th episode was probably my favourite because it felt like potentially the only episode where the show really knew what it was trying to be. A light-hearted futuristic comedy with a genuinely really good main idea to revolve around. Holly brings upon an unidentified object that he and very soon Lister know to be an old garbage pod. However, they don't tell Rimmer this, and he is absolutely convinced that it's an alien stasis device, leading to his excitement building up and up over the episode. And then while Rimmer is speculating, Dave finds out that because he brought the first cat aboard the ship all those years ago, cat people grew up worshipping him as a god, which leads to him finding a hilarious old cat priest, where the whole interaction is by far my favourite of the series and genuinely had me in stitches. Then the 5th episode, we go back to the series' driving factor for its humour being just weird, unneeded interactions. Lister contracts a mutated form of pneumonia which causes weird things he dreams of becoming real, like raining fish and exploding old dudes. More relevantly, he also imagines physical embodiments of his paranoia and confidence, which, long story short, his confidence ends up being an absolute jerk, and not only kills paranoia, but ironically, through his own self-confidence, ends up ending himself by going out in a big bang. At the end of the episode, Dave thinks he's found his crush Kachansky's hologram disc, when in reality Rimmer's planned for this, and the disc Dave found was instead just another Rimmer. Which brings you into episode 6, or the finale, where Rimmer now has a double of himself, which initially he believes he'll love. However, in actuality, the pair just end up driving each other crazy with a constant need to try and be better than each other. Lister decides to enjoy having a room to himself and watches the recording of Rimmer's last moments as a human, where to his surprise, his last words were gazpacho soup. When it comes to the point that Lister must erase one of the Rimmers due to their fighting, he uses his position of power to find out why Rimmer said gazpacho soup before he died. And extremely anticlimactically, it was just an embarrassing moment that wasn't remarkably interesting at all. And there we go. I tried to wrap up the plot for those that don't want to waste 3 hours of their lives as quickly as I could. Now, let's get cracking into part 2, the real review. Now, for this, I do think it's important to point out that this series came out in 1988, so obviously it's not going to be as visually amazing as something like a Game of Thrones or a Walking Dead. And also there were some definite comedic references that I just didn't get because I'm not their target audience, so I'm not going to mark it down for that because it probably would have been funny. And I'm just going to assume it was funny at the time, give it the benefit of the doubt. That being said, I guess the big question would be, did I even enjoy the series? And the answer would be, kind of. It's a really weird one, honestly. I probably wouldn't recommend you watch this, as, again, it is visually a little dated, and in parts it can be funny, but a lot of the general humour just doesn't really land as I think the writers would have wanted. However, I am actually glad I watched it in the end. I think the premise is actually really awesome, being the last survivor on a stranded ship with only a hologram of someone that drives you up the wall, and a mutated humanoid version of a cat is flipping cool. I don't care what you say, that's a great idea. If something like The Big Bang Theory can get 12 seasons that everyone loves, based largely around a random living room that they all have tea at, then this premise could be amazing. I just think the show didn't know if it wanted to be that kind of more juvenile, lots of quirky things happening kind of humour, or a little more mature and witty with lots of little quips and jokes that don't just pay off after 30 seconds but take the whole episode to reach its climax. And personally, I would have loved to see it take more of that latter route with a sprinkling of the absurd, which they can definitely afford as it is set 3 million years in the future. Mostly because those moments are the ones that I thought suited the whole vibe of the show the best, hence why I liked episode 4 much more than the rest of them. It had the episode-long joke of the garbage pod, but also had the wild world-building hilarity of the cat priest and all that craziness. So all in all, it feels like a series that struggled to know what it really wanted to do, but also has massive potential. And a sneaky little birdie has told me that Series 3 is where the show really starts taking off, so I can't wait for that. Hopefully it's more of what I asked for in this review. Which then leads us into the show's score out of 10. If we look at my individual ratings for the episodes, it starts off pretty well for the series with a solid 6.3 and 6.1 for episodes 1 and 2. Then episode 3 to 5, we do go on a little bit of a rollercoaster ride with a 4.5, 7 and a 5.1. Then the series does end pretty strong with a 6.5 for the finale. I thought the double room episode was pretty decent watch. So if we were to use these episodes ratings to rate the series, we get an average score of about 5.92 out of 10, very precise, which is also probably around where I'd rank it. However, I will give it an extra 0.1 respectively for 1, having an awesome base plot and idea, which, as you can probably tell, I do love the idea. I can't wait for the next couple seasons. 2, how much I already love the main 2 characters. I thought they carried the show. I'm not too fond of the cat or Holly, which is the ship's computer, but the 2 main characters I thought are written pretty darn well. And 3, because it probably would be a lot funnier if I was the target audience for the show, which unfortunately I'm not, so I'm just going to give it that extra 0.1 for the jokes that didn't land that I would have found funny. Which leads to Red Dwarf Season 1 getting, in my opinion, a really fair score of 6.22 out of 10. Definitely not an incredible show or first series, however, if you do end up watching it, you're probably going to say it was worth it by the end. And with that, thank you so much to everyone that has stuck with me this far. I really do love making these review style videos, so if you do have any feedback on how you think the video could be a little better, any series to review in the future, or any thoughts at all, I'll try and reply to as many of you as I can. But with that said, have a wonderful day, my lovelies. Can't wait to see you in the next one. Goodbye!